Have your attention, please. Folks in the back, we're going to get started. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me back there? Yay. Thanks everybody for coming here to support Steve. And thanks for Maribel for hosting this in this fabulous and very appropriate space. My name is Gary Piattoni. I am a full-time art and antiques appraiser and part-time appraiser on Antiques Roadshow. Steve and I met many years ago when I was teaching part-time at Northwestern, a connoisseurship class on art and antiques. He was in one of the classes and we've been in touch ever since. So what are we going to do about Steve? He's smart, he's generous, he's kind, he's passionate about his interests, and now he's written this book. He's making us all look bad. So, as an appraiser and a generalist, I'm sure there's some folks here that may have a professional interest in the business. Maybe some folks here have a casual interest in the art and antiques business. But whatever your interests, we owe a debt to folks like Steve for taking the deep dive into a subject, for spending the years it takes, for going to the primary research in libraries with some overprotective librarian watching over your shoulder, taking all the information over those years, collecting it and presenting it in a concise form, which is the book that Steve's presenting tonight. And now that book is something that I can use and reference without having to do 10 years of research. So thank you. With that, I'm looking forward to hearing what Steve has to say tonight. Feel free to ask questions once he's finished with his presentations. That would be fabulous. But with that, let's give Steve a big welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. It's hard to believe how long ago it was when I took some of his connoisseur shop classes and got the bug and ended up working with Maribel here at the store, learning more and more. Before I start, I wanted to express my gratitude to Maribel Weiss for allowing this event here at her wonderful store. So thank you, Maribel. Now, this isn't going to be an Academy Award speech, but I do need to recognize some people who are here. Ann Meehan isn't here, but Jasmina Basic is here. She helped me with proofreading and editing. Marty Manning is in the back. And also my wife helped me with proofreading and editing. We had some interesting discussions. Lynn Walsh isn't here, but she helped with promotional work. And if she were here, I would say this, but I want to say this to Liz Collins. Happy birthday wishes.
Thank you.
And my wife, Betsy, who many of you met, and my daughters, Jamie and Molly, Lisa and Molly. Thank you for your encouragement and support. Okay, so what the hell is an upholder? Many of you are wondering. And what did upholders have to do with the price of tomatoes? Well, basically, an upholder in 18th century London was someone who manufactured and assembled furniture and provided upholstery goods and services. By the first quarter of the 18th century, the upholding trade dominated the funeral undertaking trade. By 1760, many upholders became what was called sworn appraisers and sworn brokers of household goods, and they also started being involved in auctioneering. One upholder I studied became a member of the Upholders Company in around 1765, full service provider, did it all. 15 years later, he was just doing full-time auctioneering. And through acquisitions and mergers, the company he started in 1765 is now known as Jones Lang LaSalle, one of the world's largest real estate companies, which is headquartered here in Chicago. So how did I come to study upholders? Alice, how long ago was it we were in London studying? 15? All right, so 2011, I moved to London to go all in on learning about art and antiques. I had taken Gary's classes. I did some work with Maribel and her late husband, Richard, and I wanted to really up my game. So I did a master's degree in London through the University of Glasgow, which was taught by experts from Christie's. My thesis was about the evolution of 18th century chair splats. Okay, so what's a chair splat? This is a chair splat, the thing in the middle. And they evolved throughout the 18th century, so you can pretty much date when a chair was made. Now, when I was studying chair splats, the Christie's girls gave me a nickname, and Alice Ann was one of the Christie's girls. So, double A, what was my nickname? Splatman. And during my research, I'd often been looking at furniture books. I'd often read something like, oh, let's pick a name here. Joseph Smith was an upholder and furniture maker in fashionable Soho. And then it would go on and talk about the furniture he made. No information about what an upholder was. And so I looked into it. And there's a book at the Newberry Library, which is north side of Chicago, called The London Tradesman's, published in 1747. And it's an apprenticeship guidebook to help parents and a youngster pick an apprenticeship in 1747. And I looked at that book, and on the first page of your handout, there is a description of what an upholder is. Probably go about 3 or 4 sentences. So I got it. Well, okay, furniture, upholstery, and made fashionable things. Unsure what I wanted to do after I finished my master's. Of course, I interviewed with Christie's furniture department in New York. And you don't get paid much doing that. And you're going to have to live. Betsy and I kind of looked at, where can you live? Brooklyn or somewhere where you can get a shoebox to live in? That wasn't in the cards. So I did my PhD. And when you do a PhD, you have to pick a subject. And you have to pick something that's fresh, never been done before, and adds to the general academic knowledge. And I picked upholders. So I got accepted into a program at Oxford Brookes University in Oxford. And I selected that because of the supervisors, not because of the school. You have to live with these supervisors. You need them to mentor you and to be around to help you when you need help. And I had 3 of them. The older one, I wrote a sentence. Thomas Chippendale was at the top of his game, and I think he would have thrown his computer out the window if I was standing in front of him. But he taught me how to do academic writing, and it worked out real well. My first PhD assignment given to me was to go through 18th century newspapers. And on the handout, page 2 and 3, are just some sample ads that I recently picked out. Now, some of them you need Mr. Magoo glasses to read them, I'm sure, but they were very helpful, not only about the upholding business, they also had information about what society was like back then. Yeah, alcoholism was a problem, so you would see things about that, like the guy that was freely drinking punch and brandy all day and was carrying a chair home and sat down in it and died. Kind of dark humor, but fires were a problem, suicide, mental illness back then they called lunacy or disoriented in the senses. So I pulled a lot of information out of there, and I also found out there were a lot of bankruptcies. Starting about 1760, the newspapers were replete with bankruptcy notices, including upholders. And the main problem I discovered was there was a shortage of hard currency. You paid like a shilling coin or a pound coin. And there was a shortage. And with consumerism growing, people used paper credit. And part of the problem was today, no one in their right mind, if you owned a business, would take a third-party check. But that's what they did. They would get a promissory note, and a shop owner promissory note, and he wanted to buy more stock in trade or raw materials, so he'd endorse it over to somebody else, and it created these large chains of credit, which worked really well until something went bad. Usually war was one of the reasons things didn't go well. But I did 2 case studies. One was Robert Williams. It was my first case study. He started out as an apprenticeship upholder and bought his master's business. Would be page 4. He really didn't do funeral undertaking, but this is an image from the ledger where he provided funeral undertaking, and Mr. Chassereau up at the top he did this for his father-in-law, Mr. Chassereau. Who the person that died is, I don't know, but I can just tell you a few of the things that what it says. Elm coffin with fine flannel, brass nails, a nameplate, 3 pairs of handle, best paw, cloaks, crepe hat bands, paid for the graveyard, all that. And then they put bran, which is like a oat, in the bottom of the coffin, and they did that for 2 reasons. Number one, when they were carrying the coffin, that it didn't roll around in the coffin, and it absorbed the body fluids. The next page is just a sample of some of the things that he sold. Some of the furniture, you can read through that. I don't want to talk too much about it, but he had two brothers who were East India Company ship captains, and through them, he was able to start providing upholstery and furniture to the East India Company ship officers. And they were in the private trade. Not only did they carry the company cargo, but ship officers were allowed to take things on board and go sell it, say, in India and sometimes China, or they would trade it. They would get export porcelain from China or fabric from India and bring it back. He made a lot of money doing that. He eventually owned two large country houses. In today's money, his wealth was worth over 700 million pounds. So he was very wealthy. And Betsy and I visited the Air General, Philip Williams, Sir Philip, still owns one of the estates out in Dorset, and we went there. It's like a mini Downton Abbey. Big house. He owns a small church. He owned a little hamlet. The houses had thatched roofs on it. And if any of you saw the detective show Broadchurch, the third episode was filmed at his property where the assault happened. My next case study was a man called John Trotter, and I must be on page 6 by now, shows his apprenticeship binding or debenture or agreement. Apprenticeship began at age 14 and lasted for 7 years. Not always, but generally that was it. The father, his name is up at the top. He was from North Britain, that means Scotland. Paid 32 pounds and 10 shillings, which was about the average rate for an apprenticeship, with an elite master named Henry Williams. And it's a pre-printed form. You just fill in the blank, which I thought was kind of interesting doing it as far back as 1726. The last page shows, and I know these are hard to read. These are images of documents that are very old. He was appointed the royal upholsterer for the crown, and in that role, he did upholstery work for the palaces and a lot of interesting things. He did work on the royal yacht, which was named the Fubs, the royal tennis court at Whitehall. He did work, and he made the king's traveling bed out of white leather folding mattress, made the royal tent. So he did a lot of different things, and including the rooms in the royal palaces. The last entry I want to talk about at the bottom was he also worked for special events. Those would be coronations, weddings, and funerals. And this last entry is about for Princess Caroline and him revarnishing one of the hearses and dressing it up. And he provided 17 plumes of fine white ostrich feathers. Those would go on the horses. Clothing for the coachman and the postilion. Postilion was the guy who got on one of the horses in the front to help direct the team to go in the right direction. So that's a quick rundown on what I did. Primary sources are the documents I showed you. They're documents that were made in the period under study. And I went through thousands of pages. And the first time I did it, I thought, God, this is really cool. Something from 1701. But it gets old really fast. And you find yourself, like in the National Archives at Kew, just going through page after page. And because they use quills by then, the ink gets all over your fingers and it kind of stinks. So you have to go wash your hands every couple of hours. But eventually you find what some things you're looking for. On the desk over there, I left a few other things, just examples. Secondary information would be like most of those books there. And that's helps tie in all these old documents with current thought. So some takeaways I had: upholders were the top dogs in furnishing 18th century homes in London. The upholders company, their livery company, was male dominated, but there were women upholders. I talked about promissory notes after 1760 increased bankruptcy risk. And coming from a gentry family could help an upholder give him important financial and social connections that helped in their business. Gentry family would be, they owned some land. Finally, upholding evolved in the 18th century from furniture making and upholstery work to adding funeral undertaking, brokering and appraising, and auctioneering business lines. So thank you. Yeah.
I'm curious, what was the most surprising thing you found during your research?
The number of bankruptcies, I was not expecting that. And it led me into a whole new area of research and had to figure out, something's going on here, why, and you have to, it's like a puzzle. You got to come up with the best answer you can. Okay.
I've often wondered where the art of upholstery, that skill, came from. I mean, I know, the printed cloth from, India, and that caught the attention of Europeans about this period. But how did they just sort of, because it was more wood than upholstery then? So they like the chair behind you. Would they have been able to do something like that then?
Back then,
Versus something like, that's just a seat cover.
Dr. Feldman can give you an answer on that
Oh, okay. All right.
later.
But did they get better and better, I assume?
Oh, yeah.
They had to, right?
Oh, yeah. And they would, Spitalfields had a weaving area in East London. And they were very good at it. Most of it was run usually by women who were Huguenots that had come from Catholic France, and they had a thriving industry. And over centuries, they did that. The Upholders Company, of which I'm an honorary member and also an honorary citizen of the City of London.
So it's still active. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're doing their 400th anniversary this year from when they received their royal warrant from Charles I.
say which king was it? Charles I?
And they are creating a funeral pall, and they went to 7 or 8 cathedrals, and these women who are really into needlework and stuff agreed to make certain panels, and they're having to use stitches that haven't been used. Most people don't, never learn in centuries.
At the Royal School.
Yeah.
Yeah, Street.
Okay. Yes.
I'm curious, you mentioned promissory notes and the endorsement of promissory notes.
Yeah.
In your readings, did you get a little bit more information on how furniture was found to be chattel and found to be an asset of the estates and passed on and valued and, either through bankruptcy or
Yeah.
through estate proceedings?
Bankruptcy was pretty simple. Whatever your stock and trade was, it was sold at auction. I'm not sure about personal effects, but there was a process with bankruptcy. If you weren't getting paid and you wanted to file a bankruptcy claim, you had to be, if it was one person, I think it was maybe 100 or 150 pounds. 2 persons, maybe 200, and 3 or more, like, I might be wrong.
But furniture was part of it, right?
Their stock and trade, yeah, that was part of that. Now, in wills, generally, wills are very difficult to read from the 18th century. The handwriting will drive you insane, but generally everything went, it was primogeniture. The firstborn son received everything. Secondborn son, like John Trotter's oldest son got, the estate and a bunch of money. His secondborn son got some money, plus he also gave him money to buy a major or lieutenant colonel position in the army. You could buy your officer position. And the daughter, because she had received a large marriage settlement, didn't get much at all.
What effect, is it possible that using AI these days, it will be more possible to decipher these 18th century documents and read them more quickly?
Well, the newspapers are digitized. And they're held at the British Library. A company called Gale Company digitized them. And you have to pay for access. I got it free through my uni. And you can put in a search term like upholder, or you can put in multiple search terms, upholder, funeral, and it'll come out. And upholder, you also get some bad results, like His Majesty the King, upholder of the faith. You can automatically throw that out. But yeah, there's some of that.
Yes, who were the typical clients of an upholder? Were they mostly wealthy, and then were most of the upholders concentrated in London or any of the outside areas of England?
In England, 50% of the upholders in this, there's 18th century furniture book, and it also has upholders. 50% of the listings were in the London area. So, it's no secret that was the area of concentration for the arts and design. Once they caught up to France at the beginning of the century, they were pretty ugly what they made. I'm sorry, the first.
And the typical
Oh yeah.
client of an upholder, who did they mostly
Very,
work for?
what they called the middling sort. They didn't call them middle class back then. They called them middling sort, middling rank. Now you call it lower middle or upper middle or in between. Most upholders sold to the middling sort. There were a few elite upholders. Thomas Chippendale was, he's often said to be a furniture maker, but he really was an upholder. And he sold to the elite, and he was a terrible businessman. And I wanted to put more pages in my book, like the apprenticeship agreement. But then the Corporation of London, they told me there's another form that required me to indemnify them, and the publisher had to give them the key to the online book. And there's no, I wasn't going to sign anything like that, and the publisher would have said, "You got to be nuts. It's like you're putting, this is for when you want to put a billboard up or something on a taxi over there or a bus." So copyright was a problem. And then the last thing that I got through it is you have to write an index. And that was, that, put it bluntly, that kind of sucked, but I got through it, and I have an index. So going forward, I may just stick to, I hope to be able to write a chapter for, there's authors that do a book and they'll have different chapters by different people. I would do that, or write a journal article. But I doubt if I'll do it.
Take speaking engagements in nice, fancy, warm places, right? Yeah.
I could go with that.
Saint-Tropez, call it.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So when was the book published?
2026.
So it's
Just out.
right.
We've got copies over, he's gonna sign books.
Yes.
If you want.
So a question for you, which I think
Did you read a book on the
one of the things I struggle with is with AI,
Yeah.
generative AI, is with people like yourself that do this research and have this expertise and take the time and effort to use, your skill as a, just as a human being, right? And that to create this book,
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder, do you have any thoughts about, with someone taking information, like you said, they digitized the newspapers and that type of thing, and then, a machine, essentially, like an algorithm, creating, like a research paper or a book about upholders. And I just, as a society, we're kind of at this inflection point where it's this, it's almost quaint to think about doing this research and
Like
that type of
someone
thing.
like you who's
Right,
doing
and I
this.
just
Yeah.
I just wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Somebody using my work through AI, what's going to be is going to be. But in an academic setting, it can be really hard to get by with that, especially. And I predict even for undergraduates, comprehensive exams are going to come back where you don't know what the question is. You go in with blue books, you young people. I don't know if you know what a blue book was, but something to throw in the fireplace afterwards. But they'll give you 3 questions, and you got to write on 2 of them. That's the way to find out if you know what you're doing. And of course, the PhD, you have to have in-person examination. Actually, I did mine on Zoom because of COVID, but it was still hard experience. And then got the lawnmowers outside, some guys mowing the lawn, but. Anything else? Gary? Where's Gary? Oh, you have any questions?
I did notice that there was discussion about how there really wasn't a lot of stigma with the used furniture. It was really considered like almost like kind of buying upwards or kind of improving yourself by buying this furniture. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
It wasn't considered antique at the time. It was just somebody else's furniture, but
Yeah.
you know, better table, you were doing pretty good. Right?
Yeah. Used furniture. After about 1750, maybe 1740, of course, with mahogany coming in huge amounts. Of course, I didn't get into the colonialism part of that. I mean, it happened. I don't approve of it, but you know, it is what they did. But so much mahogany came in that there was excess oak and walnut furniture. And many people considered buying the used furniture over some of the, you could get cheap furniture made in the East End. They considered the older, it was solid, and they thought many times you could get your money out of, for what you paid for a piece of used furniture, you could sell it sometimes for the same price. And it was solid, and it had a good look to it. You know, you look at mahogany furniture, like that secretary there, that's solid, well built.
They don't make furniture like that anymore.
No, they don't, do they? No, and this is, if you got a room with a corner that you want to fill in, this would be an ideal piece. But and also William and Mary kind of set a precedent for fixing up old furniture. And you know, they wanted to contrast themselves against French extravagance. So, you know, if it was good enough to fix up old furniture for the king and queen, yeah, the gentry or the aristocracy may do the same thing. Somebody asked me about furniture being passed down. Interesting thing I found about royal furniture. When the monarch died, the, what they call him, the royal, the gentleman usher, the groom of the wardrobe, or whatever you want to call him, they got first dibs on furniture in the king's or queen's bedroom. And some of that has, the only thing they couldn't take was sculpture or paintings. But everything else they could take, you know, and they handed out as favors or put it in their own home.
Nice perk.
Yeah.
And what?
It was a nice perk.
Yeah.
Wait for the boss.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a woman named Olivia Fryman who has written about that. What's in a bedroom or something like that, and talks about the whole process. And some of it has ended up on the secondary market. It's kind of hard to prove that it was in the royal household, unless you get the documents. Some of it you can prove, some of it you can't. All right. Thank you.